You may be seated. Good morning. My name is Jeff Patterson. I'd like to welcome you to this senior oral presentation of Drew Littleton. Drew has been my senior assistant this year, and it's been a joy and a pleasure to get to work with him. Really for several years, not just this year. It's been fun to just watch him grow up. But we're going to get started today. Joining me today on my panel for Drew, right here is Mr. Ron Miller and Mr. John Snell. And I'm going to open this up in a word of prayer, and then we'll get started. So we pray with me, please. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for today. And God, I just thank you so much for the many blessings that you bestow on us. Lord, right now I just lift up Drew to you. He's got a great topic and a great speech today to give, and I pray that you'll just give him the words and the confidence to deliver it well, so the truths that you have shared with him can be shared with others here today. God, just bless him, give him clarity of mind and clarity of focus as he goes through. Amen.
Why me? Why am I the one that seems to struggle with things when no one else does? Why is it that every time I taste victory, I only suffer defeat? Why? What's the point of all this? Why me? These are questions I've wrestled with in my life. Questions that have left me angry, apathetic, and unmotivated. How do we find hope in this world when it seems like life just has us by the throat? The only way we can find it is to know the truth about God's plan. Growing up, why me was a question I really struggled with. Moving here to Midland, I had to leave behind a friend group that I really loved. I had to leave behind a sport that I grew up on. Playing basketball, every time I started to succeed, I had to suffer knee surgeries right behind it. We lost state 3 times in a row. We went and we came so close just for it to fall away out of our hands. This past year, I had the highest expectations for my senior year. And then COVID hit and everything that I expected it to be went away. Why me? Why now? Why us? Our natural reactions are to just put our head down and try to get through it. And for some people, not me, is to put on a mask of positivity and say, oh, everything's okay. We think that time will take away our troubles and hard work will ease our burdens. But do these things actually work? Let's look at Ben Hogan. Ben Hogan lived a life full of trials, but still became one of the greatest golfers of all time. When he was a kid, his father committed suicide not further from Meade Grant. He lived in the Great Depression where he worked as a golf caddy just to help provide for his family. He worked with Byron Nelson, a guy who became one of the greatest golfers of all time, but Hogan lived in his shadow. He suffered a car accident later in his career that caused him to be mentally and physically disabled. Why? Why? Every time he suffered those, he worked his way back to the top. And in 1953, he cemented his status as one of the greatest golfers of all time. His hard work let him attain things that no other golfer could ever achieve. And he put his head down every time something bad happened. And everything he accomplished, he dug out of the ground. He surpassed every goal that he set for himself. But in the end, he still felt dissatisfied. Kurt Sampson writes, "Depressed or not, Hogan appeared friendless. He rarely laughed and was not noticeably happier after achieving his presumed goal, winning golf tournaments. And despite all that he had achieved, he didn't seem to enjoy life. His perfectionist attitude was a byproduct of his determination to outrun his problems. His perfectionist attitude and his yearn for perfection for an imperfectible sport turned into a discontentment that could not be satisfied. His motivation was to win golf tournaments, but in the end, he was unfulfilled and unsatisfied. When we face trials, we can't just outwork them, nor can we outlive them. They always leave a lingering hole in our lives, and they always manage to catch back up with us. Our satisfaction can't be found in things of this world. The money we make, the fame we achieve, the things we buy, none of these things fulfill us. If these things can't, then how are we supposed to find hope and motivation? Then we can look at Peter Sage. Peter Sage lived in one of the most violent prisons in all of England. Instead of becoming a victim, he became an agent of change. He found that if you're complaining about something from the past, you're wasting time that you could be using to better yourself and others. His state of mind was optimism in all circumstances. He found himself freer than the guards that walked in every day complaining about their lives and their circumstances. He found that adversity is not unlucky, it's actually meant to grow us. He says, the strongest trees don't grow in the best soil, they grow in the strongest winds. So if you want to become the best version of yourselves, start praying for some strong winds and don't complain when they show up. His mindset rejected the victim mentality that culture tells us is relevant today. Culture tells us that when things that go wrong in our lives, we are the victims. And people find it way easier to stay in that mindset because you gain a lot more attention from it. He saw trials as learning opportunities, but where his philosophy starts to fail is when he sees optimism as a road to further happiness. The truth is that he doesn't answer the lingering questions that are left behind. Why are these things happening? Why are they happening to me? These questions remain. Sage and Hogan had one key thing missing in their lives. Hogan tried to patch his life with hard work and material glory, while Sage tried to put on a mask of positivity and just say, oh, everything's okay. Human nature tells us that these are ways to do it, but eventually these band-aids do fall off, and they will realize that they are still unfulfilled. What they lack is God's hope and what he says about our futures. We had the privilege of learning about the Holocaust in American history. We learned about Corey and Betsy ten Boom's story and how they were Christians living in Holland when the Nazis invaded. When the Nazis invaded, they started to seize all the Jews, and the ten Boom family turned their house into a hiding place. When they were later betrayed, they were sent off to concentration camps that they were keeping their fellow Jews away from. They were marched from camp to camp, living and working in the worst conditions known to man. When they reached Ravensbrück, they found that their beds were so infested with fleas that the guards wouldn't even enter the room that they slept in. But still, Betsy gave thanks, even when Corey was hesitant. She says, Betsy, thank you, Betsy went on serenely, for the fleas and for the fleas, this was too much. Betsy, there is no way even God will make me grateful for a flea. Give thanks in all circumstances, she quoted, not in pleasant ones. It doesn't say we just have to, it doesn't say in pleasant circumstances. Fleas are a part of this place that God has put us. Even in the worst and darkest moments in human history, Betsy still found the courage to thank God for it. She found that she was not a victim to her circumstances when it would have been so easy to. How am I supposed to stand here and thank God for the knees that he's given me? How am I supposed to thank him for all of the bad things that have gone wrong in my life? The truth is that her hope gave her the motivation to continue going. I had the privilege of interviewing Cheryl Giffen and Danny and Amanda Kerrigan, 3 people who went through tremendous trial and loss in their lives. Mrs. Giffen spoke with me about the cancer that her son Aaron had to go through. She was completely out of her hand. It was completely out of her hands, and it was completely unknown what his future would be. The Kerrigans spoke with me about the death of their son Bryce, how devastating it was to not only their family, but the people around them. It would have been so easy to fall into the trap of anger, bitterness, fear, self-pity, doubt, but instead they became voices of hope. Mrs. Giffen said, God is more than able to provide for our needs. There is nothing that happens to us that is not filtered through his hands. Mrs. Kerrigan said, when you lose something you love so much, you find that all you have is your faith. Instead of becoming victims, they instead chose to be voices of hope. Our faith doesn't protect us from the hard things, but it gives us the strength for it. John 16:33, Jesus says, in me you may have peace. In this world you will have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Our hope is not in the expectations, dreams, or plans we have for our lives. It is in God and what he says is good for our lives. In Rhetoric 1, we learned of this new perspective on how to view trials in Servant Leadership by Dave Kunert. He talks about the two circles you can fall into. One is the victim circle, where your circumstances cause you to be a reactive person. This is the same thing that culture tells us is relevant today. And then there's the circle of choice. The circle of choice is where we go to affect life, people, and circumstances. It is choosing to look at things through a positive lens. It is recognizing that God has me where I am for a reason. Instead of being a victim, it is asking, what should I be learning right now? Instead of letting circumstances rule us, we can rule them. We have the power to influence our lives and others by simply choosing joy. James 1:2-3 says, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Knowing that God uses them for good gives us the hope and motivation to get through them. Sage and Mr. Kunert, the difference between what they are saying is Mr. Kunert answers the questions that Sage could not. He answers the questions that I had. The answer is this: God uses the trials to not only better us, but to further his kingdom. God's plan is bigger and better than anything we can think of, and we can trust and have peace in that. The things of this world and putting on a face result in chains in our lives, but God breaks us free of these chains. We can take our burdens and our masks and we can give them to him, and he can let us live truly happy. We can give them to God and truly trust in his plan. Some biblical examples of how to truly trust in him are the stories of Joseph and Job. Joseph's story starts with being sold into slavery by his own brothers. And by the grace of God, he raises out of the jail and becomes the second in command of all of Egypt. Instead of seeking vengeance when his brothers come knocking on his door asking for some help, he decides to help them. He said, as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Even when things seem hopeless and nothing good can come out of situation, God turns them into good. We can trust in his plan. Job's life starts with prosperity and loving God, the opposite. And then Satan comes along and says, you know what, God, the only reason why he loves you is because of all this stuff he gives you. Take it away and you'll see his true colors. So God says, go ahead, just don't kill him. So Satan goes ahead and he takes away his property, his family, and his health. As Job is wondering, God, why? Why would you do this to me? God sends him a vision saying, God sends him a vision of the grandeur of his creation. Job then realizes that he could never understand the complexities of how God made the world, why he does things. He says in Job 42:2, I know that you can do all things and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Job found that even when everything is falling apart, he can still trust in God. God's plan is greater than anything we can think of, and we can trust in him. When we are faced with trials, we can't just outwork them, nor can we put on a face to try to fake them out. What we have to realize is that we are not victims of these circumstances. We can trust in God in the fact that he uses them for good. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. With this knowledge, we can live lives full of joy and peace. I'm not going to stand here and act like I've got it all figured out. Man, every time I face trials, I'm an Eeyore. But his hope lets us be motivated for our future, a future that will leave us with peace, joy, and true satisfaction. Thank you.
Well, how do you feel?
Good. This is on.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Good.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
sorry.
let's
I don't have
start
more
with
of
the
a...
easy questions then. What are your future plans?
Next year, I'm going to be the loudest, proudest fighting Texas Aggie out there.
I never want to ask that question because of all of that.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you have any plans for like what you're going to be majoring in, anything like that?
Okay, so I know I want to go into something ministry, but like Jake, I think I'm going into education, so I don't like money, and so yeah, that's my current.
Awesome. Very good. So, let's dive in then. Why this topic? Why did you choose this?
So, at the beginning of the year, when COVID hit and everything, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I had senioritis in sophomore year, but it hit pretty hard, especially after COVID hit and we were online, and it was like, man, what's the point of all of this? And so I found myself in a calculus class with Mr. Snow here. He told me the number, I won't say that. And he was like, Drew, why aren't you motivated? And I was like, I don't know. And so, and I'm a big procrastinator, so when it came time for me to choose my oral topic, I was like, I'll pick motivation in hopes that I'll find it, because I certainly don't have it right now. And I found it, so there you go.
Very good. So let's press in a little bit with just this idea of trials and them kind of knocking us off course when we have a picture of what we think the world is going to look like, and then when it doesn't look like that. Are trials always bad? I mean, when you go through something, struggle, is it always bad?
No, I don't think so. Wait, do you mean like, are they bad circumstances all the time, or are they like, saying that they're bad?
Is there a higher purpose?
Yes. I would definitely say trials are ways that God not only tests us, but he strengthens our faith through it. Like, as you can see from various people, like the trials in their lives turn them to be better people. If we weren't suffering trials, then we would never learn things, I think. So. Okay,
that leads to my next question. As you tell us that trials are learning opportunities, what kind of things are we trying to learn when everything's kind of going haywire? What are we supposed to learn?
I think it depends on the circumstance. Like in my life, growing up, I hated Tony Romo. And that's why I'm not a Cowboys fan. Because every time I would watch him play, I saw that he would get hurt. I was like, man, why? This guy's a wimp. Why is he getting hurt every time? And then I grow up, and then I have worse problems than him. And I'm like, oh, wow, maybe I should have more empathy. So I learned empathy through that. That's not the only thing, but that's one example. And then, like, in COVID, when COVID hit, it was like I've learned to truly savor the moments, because they can fall away just like that. Everything that you think is set in stone, like, oh, I'm going to have retreat this year, it can still fall away, stuff like that. So I think it depends on the circumstance, and it depends on how you take it also. So like if you take it really bad, like it can stray you the other direction too. So
how important is our perspective, our current reality?
It's very important. I think that knowing that the trials are not, it doesn't make you a victim of your circumstances, allows you to see hope and see the greater good of things, and you can trust that God uses them for good. I think that like, yeah, that's what I would say.
So I've heard this victim circle talked about a couple of times over the last couple of days. Can you explain it a little bit for the benefit of maybe those who are, this is a new concept? I mean,
So in Servant Leadership by Dave Kunert, he talks about the two circles that you can fall into. The first one is the victim circle, and it's a circle where it's like both of the circles start with me in the middle, and then it has the victim circle. It has arrows pointing to me, like circumstances, life, people, like those are like attacking me. And then the other circle is the circle of choice, where it's me in the middle, and it's pointing out, and you are influencing circumstances, life, people. So
how would you counsel somebody to try to keep them out of the victim circle?
Well, first you have to start by recognizing that they are victims. Like, you have to say, okay, you need to let this, you're letting this rule your life. Like, COVID is ruling your life. You're not coming out of your house. Like, you have to be upfront about that. And then I think after that, you can speak with them, and you can speak hope into their lives, like telling them about the good things that can come out of it. Because when we're in the trench, it seems like nothing good can come out of things. And when people like go in, and I think you can use what Madeline said, like, oh, be thankful in all circumstances. Like, I think if you find yourself like writing down things that you're thankful for, you start to have more hope, and then you can branch out and say like, oh, well, God actually uses these for good, and then you can go on from there.
So when we take the focus off of ourselves, does that help us maneuver through those trials better?
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely the first step, like recognizing that you are a victim and like everything's about me, and then flipping it and saying, you know what, I don't have to live like this. I can.
Is it possible that the trials we go through are actually not even for us, but are they for somebody else's growth?
Yeah.
Can they be?
Yes, I definitely think so. I think when you lose someone you love, I mean, they're not going through the trial. They are in heaven with God. They are in like paradise. But it still affects the people around them. And then it even further, it affects people who know them, like in their community, and it affects people who they don't even know, like, and so I think, yeah.
So the way that we handle our trials and the way that we do life when we have struggles could then in that situation then become a witnessing tool or an example of how other people can pursue through their trials. I mean, was that what you're trying to tell me?
Say that again, sorry.
So the way that we go through our trials, the way that we handle them, can that be an example of how other people can go?
Yes, I would say for me, I find it easier to try to live life like Christ, and that's how this isn't necessarily the right way to do it or anything, but what's the word? I find myself not necessarily evangelizing or discipling, but I find myself trying to spread Jesus' message by living life like him and trying to be positive, which, as many people know, I'm not a positive person. But I'm working on that, and I'm trying to become have more of that hope and that joy that Jesus has. And if you start to have that, and like some of the best people I know who are just like when they're in the thick of it, they're still happy. I'm like, well, how can you be happy? And they're like, well, Jesus says, like, count it all joy. And so I think that's one way that we can be a witness to people who are going through trials.
Very good. I've got some more, but I'm going to pass it on and come back.
What are some fleas in your life, Drew?
My sibling? No, I'm just kidding. Well, I mean, I think there's a bunch. I think the fact that I get hurt every time I try to play a sport is a flea. The fact that every time I go on to, every time I try to seek victory, like in going to state 3 times, it was like, why aren't you letting us win? Like, I think that was a big flea. And then, I don't know, I think when COVID hit, that was another big one, because it was like, oh, wow. Every college is online. Do I really want to go to college? Like, what? Like, and then, I don't know. I think that it just kind of like came in and it was like, oh, how am I supposed to be thankful for this? But, yeah. So those are some fleas in my life.
Do you, because I struggle with this part, and God's a personal God, right? I mean, he cares about Drew Littleton. When I go out here, when your dad and I and you occasionally, not very often, but sometimes, mow,
unpaid most of the time,
or weed eat with us, right?
Yeah.
When we go out there to mow, there's this thing out there that if you walk across the field, you get. Do you know?
Oh yeah, stickers.
Yeah. So, like, did somebody go out there and just put those stickers down because Drew was getting ready to walk across that field? Or are those stickers just in place because the world's fallen?
That's a good question. I would say stickers are a part of God's greater purpose, and just because we have to suffer through them doesn't mean that it's specifically for us. I think that he can put out stickers for, he can put out stickers in Midland and I guess most of Texas.
They're not in North Carolina.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't know what a sticker was.
The holy state, right?
Yeah, right.
No, but I think he can put them out there. I'm not saying God can do this because I said so or anything like that, but I think he puts them out there because there's a reason. We don't have to know the reason why he puts stickers and why we have to step in them and go like, God, why do you put these stickers in Midland?
Yeah.
Why is Midland a dust bowl? Why is it flat? I mean, we don't have to know the reasons to everything. But I think that there is a purpose, and even though we can't see it, we can know that it's good and we can still trust in it.
Okay. So I think the point I'm getting to, are there things that happen just because the world's fallen, and sometimes the world just stinks? I mean, it's a fallen world we live in. It's not perfect, right? Or is everything that bad happens catered to you or to me to grow us? So when we lose state, was it because of me?
No,
Was it because God wanted to teach me something? Or was it because God wanted to teach Drew something? Or was it just the fact that sometimes you don't win games?
Yeah.
And then a coping mechanism for us is to go, God must be trying to teach me something, right? Is every moment like that a teachable moment and something that I should stop and I should take inventory and I should go, gosh, what is it? What is it you're trying, or should I be able to just move on and go, that it happens. If you're going to play in a game, sometimes you lose, right? How do you, and I'm asking this because, again, I've struggled with it because you have all these questions, right? And when you, so what do you think about that?
So without getting into deep theological discussion, because basically,
deep theological.
Yeah, because basically you're asking what the problem of evil is, and that's like, why does God put bad things in the world? And the truth is that from what I understand and what my apologetics class taught me, is
I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah, I was awake for that one, I think.
Okay,
but it was God isn't evil. He can't be evil. He can't be evil and good at the same time.
Right.
So he's not the reason why the bad things are in the world, and he doesn't put things that are evil to test us. I think I might have been contradicting myself, but he doesn't put them in. He is not the reason why there is evil, but he is the reason why good comes out of the evil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's, there's evil in the world because the fall happened, and when that fall happened, they got kicked out of the garden, and stickers became a part of human life, right? Whatever you want to put in there for stickers.
Yeah.
So, I lost my train of thought. So, why is it so important for God? Why is it so important to God for us to actually learn how to cope with trials? You gave in your paper to grow us. Well, why is that important? I mean, what's the purpose of us being grown and mature?
Because when we start out our lives, we really don't know anything. We only know what our parents teach us, and when we go out into the world and we actually experience that, I think the trials actually allow us to truly see God in our lives. Because we can sit in Sunday school and hear, "Oh, Jesus fed the 5,000." Oh yeah. But until we truly go out there and then see miracles in our lives, and see how God actually turns them into good, I think that the reason why he doesn't send the trials. Hold on. Not trying to contradict myself. Yeah. The reason why he allows trials to occur and allows us to grow out of them is to get closer to him and closer to loving him. I think that's
okay. Yeah. A couple snowball questions, just easy, right?
Okay.
So when you go watch movies, what kind of movies do you like, just in general? What's your favorite type of movie to go watch?
I really like Marvel movies.
Okay.
I like Star Wars movies too. That kind of stuff. Action, I guess, is that.
Do you like movies where people have to overcome a lot?
Yes.
What's your favorite movie where someone overcomes or something happens, then you go, okay, that was awesome?
I think Shawshank Redemption. I haven't seen that one yet. Oh yeah, Shawshank Redemption is probably my favorite. And it's my favorite because it literally starts in worse circumstances, and then he's just happy all the time, and he's Red's why are you happy? And he's because he had a sunny disposition, I guess. And so, but then later it gets he's reaching the tipping point, and then he says, "Get busy living or get busy dying." And so you're thinking, "Oh, he's about to go hang himself." And it's oh gosh. And then it does such good. It's such a good movie, and then I'm not going to spoil the ending, but yeah.
It's only been shown on TBS a million times.
Yeah, and I think probably came out when you were born. So.
I don't want you to spoil the ending either. So. But it's a great movie, right? That's a great. Okay.
It's rated R, so if you're children out there, you can't watch that yet. But.
Thanks, Drew.
If you are a children.
Well, Drew didn't answer that question correctly. That's what I told him he should have.
Yeah, that would have been the brownie points, but
that's a good one.
Yeah, I told him he should answer Lonesome Dove, because get Ron on that subject and you'd be about done with your time.
Yeah. It's true.
So Ben Hogan, how in the world did you get the idea to use Ben Hogan in your paper?
So there was this great philosopher that was happened to be my calculus teacher, and so I'm sitting in class. I'm like, God, What book can I read to learn about this? Because, of course, there's nothing else out in the
To
world.
learn about what?
To learn about hope and motivation.
Right.
I'm like, well, yeah. Well, there's no other book on the planet that talks about that. And then Mr. Snell here, the great philosopher, goes, "Hey, you should read this book." So he gives me Hogan. He's like, yeah, this is going to show you how to do hope and motivation. And I read through it. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Like, oh, he's going through so much. Oh, he's about to find the answer. And then it ends, and you're like, he never found hope or motivation. I'm like, Mr. Snow, what? I was like, oh, well, I guess this is how not to do it. So,
You asked me for an inspiring story of an example of an inspiring story from sport.
Yeah.
I gave you the best one I had.
Yeah.
And you use them as a counterexample
Yeah. Yeah.
in your oral. And
And then he wouldn't believe me when I was like, yeah, he didn't find it. What? Yeah, he did.
And then by circumstance, fleas or whatever it might be, I end up being on your oral board. Yeah. So
By the grace of God,
So, is there anything about Hogan's life that's inspiring, since that was the reason I gave you the book in the first place?
No, I'm just kidding. Well, I think it is crucial to realize that what Peter Sage and Hogan did aren't inherently bad. Like, putting your head down and trying to get through it is the correct answer in some circumstances, but if you're not rooted in the hope that God gives you, those things are the wrong way to take it. I think that if he would have gone through it and still had a positive attitude or had hope in his circumstances, I think it would have.
So you're saying there's nothing inspirational unless you arrive at that answer, which is Jesus.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I'm starting to dig a hole. I see that. Say the question again.
Can you find inspiration in his story, even though he didn't arrive at the answer that you would wanted him to?
Well, yeah, because he did find success. I think it was. It's very admirable what he did. He went through HE double hockey sticks. He went through that.
Has that ever been said in oral?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think I
just want to mark this moment.
Yeah.
All right.
I think he went through that.
All right.
But he still came out of it reaching success, which is still very hard. I just think that in the end he wasn't a happy person, and if he would have found.
Right. It's the but.
Yeah.
You got a but. I'm inspired, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, I'll go find another book.
I still have to give it back to you.
Yeah, you do need to give it back to me because he wrote on the front inside cover about people like you that borrow books and don't give them back.
He signed it.
Yeah.
Plagiarism. He signed it. Ben Hogan. Just so that people who borrow his book give it back to him. Because they're like, oh, Ben Hogan signed this. I better give this back to Mr. Snow.
It says, please give this book back to the Mr. Snow when you're done with it.
Yeah.
Ben Hogan. Yeah.
It's like, wow.
I haven't gotten it back.
Yeah.
Okay. You can keep it if you want.
All right. It's signed by Ben Hogan.
It is.
I might just keep it.
It is. Okay. So then I want to take issue with this. I want to dream up other answers. You say, when we are faced with our trials, our natural reaction is to...
Yeah. Okay. So
I think there's 12 answers.
That's true.
But you chose the one that says to put our head down and pass through it, which is the last thing I would do.
Yeah.
So what are some other options? You say when we are faced with trials, our natural reaction is to... What is really the natural reaction of man when faced with trials?
Okay. So the natural reactions that I have, I'm going to go with those. Because there's a bunch. But whenever I'm faced with
I've seen some of these natural reactions to trials. So you can't be lying to me here.
No, he knows.
I've seen these, yeah.
Yeah, when I face trials in my life, like an oral, I tend to be I can't think of the word. Procrastination. I turn to that, and I put it off. I'm like, I can do that later, and then but then it happens, and I was like, oh, well, I better get on my horse and start doing that. And then another natural reaction that I have is anger. Like, why is this happening? Because I ask that question like every day of my life. Another natural reaction is to be lazy. Like, oh man, like, we lost state this year. I'm just going to wallow in self-pity and just be lazy.
Pull the covers over your head and just go back to bed.
Exactly, yeah. I don't know. What other natural reactions do I have?
Well, since you're asking that. I think most people quit.
Yeah?
I think most people just give up.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes Hogan inspirational.
That's true. He doesn't quit.
But we're off that subject. So, yeah, I think most people quit, or they figure out a way to round their trials. They try to they'll lie, cheat, steal, whatever they need to do to get around that trial, to avoid that trial. So now I do like where your paper goes. I noticed the people in your paper. I wrote them down. You had Hogan, Sage. You had Corey Ten Boom, Joseph, Job, Mr. and Mrs. Kerrigan, and Mrs. Giffen. And then I was really surprised to see Dave Coonert on that list, because I work with Dave, and I can't imagine that he's on that list.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there was one thing Dave says about the victim circle I don't think you've put your finger on. He says about the victim circle, how to get out of it. There was an issue of personal responsibility. Did you address that as part of your answer?
I just realized your tie. Why are you wearing that?
That was going to be another question.
It has longhorns on it. Sorry. Go ahead.
This is not about me. This oral's not about me and my tie.
Well,
it's about
you made it about you when you put on that tie. That's that. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted your question. Sorry.
Gosh. All right, personal responsibility. What role does personal responsibility have in getting out of the victim circle?
Okay. So, I think you have to. The first step of getting out of the victim circle is realizing you're in the victim circle.
Right.
So you have to be you're responsible for actually choosing to believe, you know what, these circumstances are leading my life. They have the reins of my life. And you have to realize, like, oh, I'm letting them take the reins of my life when I don't have to. I think that's probably the personal responsibility that they have. Okay.
I think sometimes we're in the victim circle because we put ourselves there. It's our fault. The trials we're experiencing, we have to acknowledge that we made them. We chose them. We chose the path that put us here. And until we do that, we don't get really out of it. So
yeah. Okay,
well, I'll pass the mic so that you don't ask any more questions about a tire.
A tire. It's a tie.
All right, Drew. It's time for us to venture into the virtual questions, the oral, the
oh goodness,
the online
don't say
iPad
Mr.
questions.
Custer. Just don't say Mr. Custer. You're gonna pick it.
No. All right. First question comes from Dalton Meeker.
Okay.
It says, why does society go down the path of least resistance, just giving people masks of emptiness when things are hard? Kind of going on what Mr. Snell was just talking about, just quitting.
Yeah. Because it's easy. It's way easier to go down the path more traveled. It's harder to go down the path less traveled. I think you can't. Culture tells us that like everything in our life needs to go like with the least amount of resistance as it possibly can. And I think. I don't know. I think that it's just so easy to go down that path, and that's why culture tells us that that's how you're supposed to do it. And yeah, I don't know if I answered that question. You can ask it again if I didn't. But.
No, you did good. Okay, this is for Mr. Reed.
Okay.
Looking ahead in your life, what are some trials that you foresee yourself going through, and how can you prepare yourself to face those victoriously?
Well, college. I mean, going into a new place is never easy. And leaving behind what is very what's the word? What is very familiar is very hard. How leaving the nest, so to speak, is very hard. Going out and actually choosing to take responsibility for your life and for the first time, really. And I think that that's probably one of the bigger trials that I'll face in the very near future. So,
okay. Second part of his question was, how can you prepare yourself to face those victoriously?
In that circumstance, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know exactly how I could. Maybe okay. I could secure my faith more. I could read more of the Bible and see what it says about going into places that are unknown. I think there's something in the Bible for everyone and for everything, I think, and that's one way you could start to prepare for trials that you don't know that you're going to face, or if you know you're going to face them, then even better. You can go in and search for that. What's it going to be like when I truly have to live on my own? I think that's probably what I would say.
All right, and last one from online, from Sam Tamplin. It says, what would you have done? What would you have done in Hogan's place? Would you have persevered, or would you have pursued a different career?
Yeah, see, that's a good question. So I joined the golf team this year. Never played golf a game in my life, and I still haven't played a game of golf in my life.
It's a round of golf.
Whatever. Yeah. So I started off with my dad's clubs that he bought at a garage sale when he was my age. So I've already broken a club because it's just old. But if I was in Hogan's shoes and I started facing trials like that, especially the living in the shadow of Byron Nelson, because I've always lived in the shadow of Gabe. Not really, he's lived in my shadow, but I think that I would have quit golf. I would have been everything's going wrong, I just need to I need to wallow in my self-pity rather than trying to get through it. That's how I think I would have taken it. But.
All right. Okay, I'm going to go quick so we can get through our second round. But the one thing I want to know is what would you say to somebody like you, another Eeyore, when they're encountering a struggle or trying to find motivation? I mean, what have you learned through this process that you could pass on to someone else?
Well, I didn't get to put my favorite verse of all time in my oral, which I was kind of sad about. But my favorite verse is Matthew 6:34. It's, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. Today is sufficient enough. And I think I probably botched that, but there you go. And I think for a fellow Eeyore like me, which I know there are many of us out there, I think knowing that we can just take one step at a time and we can actually trust in God and His plan, because He turns them into good even when we don't think that they can. I think that gives us hope and it gives us joy. I think it allows us to walk through life with optimism, because you don't have to sit there and go I just lost $10,000 in the stock market, I'm ruined. I think you can that one's kind of a hard one to say, it'll turn it into good, but He can turn things into good, and we won't have to worry about those things. We can put them to God. I think that's what I would say.
Very good. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on.
So, Drew, one thing I think about to combat whatever we're trying to combat here, whether it's poor attitude or whether it's how to face trials or whatever, it is to have a vision. And so when you were in Wakeland, in what grade last year you were there?
Sixth grade.
Sixth grade, okay. You had this vision of what you thought the future was going to be, right? And
Very much so.
And that future probably, or what was that vision? As you looked ahead, what did you see yourself doing at Wakeland High School?
Oh, I saw myself as a star quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the reasons why I think my knee surgery or moving to Midland was a good thing, because I would have never been able to see the football field because I would have just like broken every bone, and
Yeah.
I think it would have been, So my goal
So don't get ahead of me because I'm going to ask you those questions.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
So there we go.
So you had a vision, right?
Yeah.
And most guys that have a vision for the future in 7th grade, it's to play in the NBA, play Major League Baseball, or play in the NFL.
Yes.
I mean, if we're honest, it's something like that. Or if you're Jake, it's go to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have those visions, and then at some point, kind of current reality begins to impede on these dreams and visions that we have. And so you were uprooted, though. You did have friends. You had a system, or you had this culture. You all were a big part of that school, like you became a big part of this school when you came. Looking back on it now, how did God work it for good? What are the things that... Because there are a lot of 7th graders out there, or 8th graders, that are sitting there in, Great Books 1 going, how can God work this for good?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. My circumstances are pressing in on me. How has it worked for you? What have you learned?
Yeah, so I definitely think he took me out of Frisco because, one, I started to idolize football, which is very easy to, especially in Texas. But other things, I think that the friend group I had there is nothing. It's the one I have here. I'm very thankful for.
Yeah.
And I think that I think moving here allowed me to connect with a school and a church that actually like grew me, because there it was kind of, it's harder, I don't know, when you're in public school, but I'm kind of digging myself a hole. But I think I think he turns it into good. Not only am I thankful for the friends I got, the experience I've had, I think that he put me here for a reason. And even though when you're a 7th or 8th grader sitting in great books reading the Iliad and the Odyssey, you're like, why? I think it not only strengthens our faith reading those books, but it allows us to learn more about ourselves and about God and about life. I think, so moving here was very good for my life.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to compare. I think, Drew, if you had stayed there, you'd be awesome. Because I think God would grow you there. God's a big God, Or if you moved somewhere else, God's a big God, and I think that's the point. But whenever something like that changes, you can look at things and be thankful for it, and you could also have a lens of complete bitterness or pessimism. I mean, you could stay in that lens and look back on it and go, gosh, if we had never moved, and that's easy to do too, but you haven't. And so anyway, thanks, Drew.
All right. Well, looks like I got 1 minute. I don't really have any more questions for you.
Okay.
Do you want to kill a minute doing anything, or you want me to ask any question I haven't asked you that you could answer in a minute?
I think the question you want to ask me, you can ask me.
Oh, I don't have a question.
What about the question we talked about?
Oh, what's your favorite color?
There we go, yeah.
Well,
My-
the reason why that's a go-to question in my back pocket is because I sit on oral boards and somebody next to me asks me, why is evil in the world? And it's like it's hard to come up with a question after that. So,
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Drew, what's your favorite color?
Okay. So
I know what it is.
you do.
I think so. Go ahead.
What's your guess? I want to know.
No, I'll tell you in a minute. I'll work it into my answer to your question.
Okay. My favorite color is purple.
Really?
Is that not what you thought?
That's not what I thought. Why?
The reason why is because I thought about this question for a
You
while.
did?
I was prepared for this question because it's a mix between red and blue, right? And I think the red, I see it as the red is the blood of Christ and how he atoned for our sins, and the blue is the water that washes them away.
And you thought about this?
I thought about that
Wow.
in the shower last night. Yeah.
Okay, well that's not what I would have guessed, but that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Man.
What was your? Oh, it was maroon.
No, I'll
right?
tell you in a
Probably. It wasn't burnt orange. I can tell you that. But
It's not without effort on my part.
All right, Drew, we've come to the time where you get to ask us a question. So what have you got for us?
so this is for all of you. What is a moment in your life where you either sought motivation for it, you had motivation for it, or you used it as motivation and it ended up not working out?
I got this. Okay, I'm going to go back to your love of football because I did grow up, in Odessa. I went to Permian, so football.
Friday Night Lights, yeah.
Yep. So 8th grade, picture it, right? I was very small,
Yeah.
but I made up for being very small by being very slow, right? So
I can see how you can make up for that. Yeah.
So I was not ever really going to see the field, right? So in 7th grade, I did. I played both ways. I was the starting defensive end, split 9. Can you imagine? I was the original weak side.
Oh, okay.
So I was the original blind side. It was me.
Yeah.
Right. Not that guy in that movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm not 8th grade. Everybody grows, and I don't. And so I go from playing all the time to watching all the time and killing grass on the sidelines on Saturdays instead of playing. And so we're in practice one day, and I'm highly motivated to find a way to get to play. I mean, I really want to play, and not only do I want to play, but I'm also upset because this new kid moved into town. I can still see his face, his name Gordon, written on the tape across the front of his helmet. Gordon.
Worst.
Yeah, the nemesis, Gordon. So so we go to practice, and we're running first team defense, which I was not on. And so I'm playing on the scout team offense for the other team. And so I'm running the wideout, and the play that we calls for the wideout to have basically just before crackbacks were illegal, so have a crackback on the split 9. My man, Mr. Gordon, right? I get him. Yes.
I'm so impressed at how vividly you remember this.
You'll find out why it's so vivid in just a moment.
Okay.
So the play goes and everything, and man, I'm coming. I've got him lined up. He's in my sights, and I'm just going to totally just crush him. The next thing I know, I'm told that I flew about 5 yards backwards, because the next thing that I know is my coach's very, very worried and concerned face is like right in mine, going, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I don't really know how long I was out, but
Wow.
it didn't work out too good.
Yeah.
I didn't get to play,
Yeah.
and it kind of hurt, and yeah.
Wow.
So there you
That's
go.
pretty good. That's pretty good. God, Gordon.
Okay. Was that kid's Flash? Was that his first name? No. Okay. Well, I was. Yeah, those are just how my brain works. I was trying to think of an example, and Drew wanted this to be a funny example, and so Drew asked me this a few days ago, and I still haven't come up with a good answer. But I will go to this one because it did have a lot to do with motivation. And so one of my giftings, I think, is to get people to do things and inspire people to go do things that they wouldn't normally do, right? Okay. And so sometimes I can do that. It's like the superpower. It's a gift and a curse, because sometimes I can do that and get people to do things that they shouldn't do, and sometimes I can do that and get people to do things they should do. So when I was about 30, right around there, it's a long time ago, ancient of days.
Back in the 80s, probably.
A friend of mine and I were driving around in New Braunfels, and we decided, or we were just driving around in New Braunfels. I was a director at T-Bar M, Travis, and he was assistant director. And we were driving around, and we heard this commercial on the radio, and it was like, "Come to the Coliseum and see the monster truck," And it just went on. And my buddy's like, "We need to go to that. That'd be awesome. Have you ever been to a monster truck?" And I'm like, "No, never have." And I'm like, that sounds fun. So instead of it just being like me and Kenny deciding to go, I think like everybody I know should go to this monster truck rally. So we start talking it up, and we get people to go, and we have probably about 25 people that decide to go with us. We inspire them to go to the monster truck. And we get down there, and we walk around the corner, and the line is literally from like here to the bus barn to get in. It is like forever. And everybody in our group, led by my wife, is saying, "Let's just go get coffee somewhere. Let's not wait in this line." And I'm like, "No, we came here to do the monster truck. We are going to this monster truck rally." And to make the story a lot shorter, I end up winning, and we go to the monster truck. So you'd think it would be triumphal, and you'd think your wife would go, "Gosh, you're such a great leader, and you inspired me to go to the monster truck rally." And I literally, it's like sometimes in 7th grade when your dream is to play NBA. I have these visions of what it's going to be like when you get in there. And you're talking it up to everybody in the group, and they're getting excited. It's going to be fun. We get up to the window, but I'm already committed. We get up to the window, and they say, "We're out of tickets except individual tickets." So we end up not being able to sit as a group. We all sit in different spots. Amy and I sit on the top row of this Coliseum, and there's nothing up there except carbon monoxide fumes, and you're literally about sick when you get out. It was the worst day of my life.
Everything bleeds section.
It was completely awful. And anytime I try to get the troops moving, Amy will go, "It's the monster truck. Go sit down. It's the monster truck thing. Go be in your room. Don't say anything else." So.
Oh well.
Okay, well, the other night I'm laying in bed. It's like 2:36 in the morning, and I get this text from Drew.
I sent it at 11, which is late. I know.
How old do you think my phone is?
It's probably true. Yeah,
it's an older model.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so the question is, a time in my life I pumped myself up to do something. It didn't work out very well. Well, so this morning, I got up really early because I haven't been sleeping very well the last couple nights, I've been thinking about this question. It's hard to go back to sleep when you get a deep question, at 2:36 in the morning. So, anyway, I went into my closet and I thought, how can I pump myself up to come to Drew's oral?
Oh, wow. I already see where this is going.
I thought, I'm really not even supposed to be on this oral board. I'm Mr. Snell. Mr. Snell. Benjamin is supposed to be on this oral board.
He abandoned me.
Did you ever know? Did you know I named my son after Ben Hogan?
That's a lie.
And so I thought, what would Benjamin do? I thought, Oh, well, Benjamin would wear a tie. So I reached in, I got just the first tie. It came to my, I pumped myself up. It was dark, and I got this tie. And
worst tie.
I tried it on, and it just hasn't worked out very well. You noticed it halfway through your oral. It distracted you.
Yeah.
And so it just didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got.
Wow.
But I did on my way over here. This could be the first oral where people give gifts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but maybe we could start a new tradition.
Yeah, I like this tradition.
Yeah,
already.
so on the way over here, I stopped at the store and got you a gift.
Oh, if it's a Longhorn, I'm going to throw it.
No, I'm thinking of you. I got you some Kool-Aid. And I got you the flavor that I thought you would like the best, the black cherry.
Oh, wow.
Because it's maroon.
Yeah?
And I thought you would like maroon.
That's true.
In fact, you could put it in that deal right there, and we could see the whole thing turn maroon.
Wow.
Or how about that? I thought, Drew could answer the question, about how he loves MCA, how MCA has been so influential in his life, and he loves the color purple.
Wow.
So I got you purple
wow.
and maroon, and there you go.
Double crossed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
so you can choose which one.
All right.
Yeah.
Can I put it in there?
Can you? Is that the only water we can get all day
there is
long?
no sugar. Yeah. Ooh.
Okay.
But it's maroon. It'll be worth it.
All right.
No, I'll not.
Yeah, you might want to save that for later.
Yeah. I opened it and it was strong. Sorry.
Because you might run into a Longhorn someday, and you might need to have him drink that.
God forbid.
Okay, that's all I got, Drew. All right.
Sure. Father, thank you for this oral. I thank you for Drew. I thank you for the way you've shaped him and grown him. I thank you that he has chosen to seek you and allowed you to work in his life and to see what is important and to see what attitudes he wants to convey to people. I thank you for his self-awareness. I thank you for truth that he has sought out, and I pray for him as he goes to the next step and goes down to College Station. I pray that you would watch over him, direct his path, and just continue to give him and all of us hope for the future. In Christ's name, amen.